Welcome to Newsday on the BBC. I'm Marie Goy in Singapore. Our headlines this hour. French police say they killed the gunman who shot dead 3 people near a Christmas market in Strasbourg. Ready to help but unwilling to renegotiate. That's the message from EU leaders as Theresa May warns that their Brexit deal is at risk.
Hello, I'm Ben Bland in London. Also coming up in the programme. Facing extinction, the Maldives and other developing nations warn their survival depends on the world's commitment to tackling global warming.
No one seems to be listening to what the science is saying.
And what does that mean for your country?
We will disappear.
And pushing the boundaries, Pakistan selects its first ever international blind female cricket team.
Live from our studios in Singapore and London. This is BBC World News. It's Newsday.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m. here in Singapore, midnight in London, and 1 in the morning in the French city of Strasbourg, where police say they have shot dead the man believed to have attacked a Christmas market on Tuesday, killing 3 people and injuring others. The man, named as Cherif Chekard, had been on the run since Tuesday evening. The suspect had a string of criminal convictions and had become a radical Islamist while in prison. Our correspondent Gavin Lee has the latest.
The scene in the suburbs of Strasbourg, where the search for the suspected gunman of Tuesday's attack ended with the death of 29-year-old Cherif Chekard. The French elite anti-terrorism unit, RAID, led the operation, ending the 48-hour manhunt. Eyewitnesses here say they heard gunfire as the police and military teams moved in.
When I need to go home, and I see, and they blocked the road, and I heard a few gunshots, and it was very strange.
29-year-old Cherif Chekard was born in Strasbourg from an Algerian family. Authorities say he was a known criminal, convicted 27 times for petty crime, but was radicalised in prison, and when released last year was placed on a security threat list of individuals monitored for possible extremism. It was here at the Christmas markets in Strasbourg, the oldest and most famous in France, where the attack was carried out. Police say Cherif Chekard was carrying a pistol and a knife, shooting and stabbing people in the streets as others ran for their lives. Chekard is said to have been confronted by soldiers patrolling the markets who shot him in the arm, though he escaped by taxi, ordering the driver to take him to the Neudorf area, 15 minutes drive south of the city. There was a second exchange of gunfire with police, though he escaped and hadn't been seen since. Special forces carried out an earlier raid in Neudorf this afternoon, saying they found nothing and told reporters they were sure he wasn't there. 3 people were killed in the attack, 12 more were injured. Tonight, the city is notably quiet. People living here speak of their fear of the last few days and that it appears to have come to an end.
That report there by Gavin Lee. Let's take a look now at some of the day's other main news. And European leaders have said the Brexit deal agreed with Theresa May is not up for negotiation. Mrs May had travelled to Brussels to get assurances that the Northern Ireland backstop would not become a permanent arrangement. She said clarification over that issue could see the deal voted through by the House of Commons. A short while ago, the European Union co-president Donald Tusk spoke to the media.
Bearing in mind our full respect for the parliamentary process in the United Kingdom, we have agreed the following. First, the European Council reconfirms its conclusions of the 25th of November 2018, in which it endorsed the withdrawal agreement and approved the political declaration. The Union stands by this agreement and intends to proceed with its ratification. It is not open for renegotiation.
Well, the BBC's Nicholas Watt gave this analysis of EU claims that Theresa May hasn't made any new proposals.
The point is Theresa May has proposed an idea Her idea is she would like legal certainty that the backstop in Northern Ireland, that's designed to prevent a hard border. She wants legal certainty that that can come to an end. She put it on the table and they've said, no, thank you very much. And I do have to say that the conclusions of the EU 27, that's the EU minus the UK, that they've released tonight make very grim reading for Theresa May. They say they are standing by the Brexit deal, they are pushing ahead with ratification, and then they say very simply it is not up for renegotiation. And on this crucial issue of the backstop, they say of course we would like it only to apply temporarily, but it's a backstop. And they say whilst they'll work very hard to have a replacement, which is a free trade deal that would avoid a hard border in Northern Ireland, whilst they'll work hard on that, they'll work speedily on that. The backstop has to be there unless and until that new arrangement is agreed. That is absolutely not what Theresa May wanted to hear.
Nicholas Watt there. Now, let's look at some other news. The French car maker Renault says an initial audit looking at the pay of its chairman and chief executive, Carlos Ghosn, has not found any irregularities. Renault's board said its lawyers would continue to review allegations made against him by its partner group Nissan, which recently sacked him as its chairman. The executive is currently being detained in Japan, where he's been charged with financial misconduct. He has denied underreporting his pay package at Nissan. A woman accused by the US of being a Russian agent has pleaded guilty to conspiracy as part of a plea deal at a court in Washington. Maria Butina was accused by prosecutors of trying to infiltrate the National Rifle Association to try and influence American policy towards Russia. The lobby group is closely aligned to Republican politicians, including President Trump. The latest test flight by Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic has reached the edge of space for the first time. Well, the edge that's nearest to us. The aircraft bearing the Spaceship Two passenger rocket ship took off from the Mojave Desert in California. The project to take passengers to this height has been delayed by technical problems and a fatal crash 4 years ago.
So the spaceship, which is right behind me, I don't know if you can see it, is attached to a mothership, it's a giant aeroplane that we built. It is taken up to about 40,000 feet. The spaceship is then dropped from the mothership. It fires its rocket. It goes from 0 to 3,000 miles an hour in 7 to 8 seconds straight up. We all had the most fantastic view of this happening here from the Mojave today. And then, when it's in space, it suddenly is not moving anymore. People unbuckle their seats and they float around and they look out of these big windows that are in the spaceship.
Now, you may remember this story. 2 weeks ago, Daniela Anthony and John Drennan got engaged in New York and then on the same day lost their engagement ring down a grate in Times Square. There was then a worldwide search to find the couple and reunite them with their ring.
So, for the second time.
I can't believe it.
Would you be my wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, she said yes. And not only did they get their flight out to California for free, the show's producers also $12,000 to put towards their wedding as well. Not bad, eh?
Now, Australia's Foreign Minister Marise Payne has just ended her two-day visit to Myanmar. During the trip, she met with Myanmar's de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi. In October, Australia joined the EU and the US in introducing travel and financial sanctions on 5 top Myanmar military officers accused of overseeing brutal violence against Rohingya Muslims. Ms. Payne has said that Australia is committed to work towards a long-term and durable solution to the crisis in Rakhine State. But how should that be achieved? Well, earlier I was joined by Tom Woodruff, who works for the advisory group Independent Diplomat.
I think it was very much a familiarisation visit for the new Foreign Minister. I think very positively included in her visit was a trip to Rakhine State, where a lot of Australia's aid assistance is flowing, but also where she would have had an opportunity to speak to a number of Rohingya people directly about the situation on the ground there. And of course, she also met with Aung San Suu Kyi in the capital, as you mentioned. But what's really important now, I think, and what will be ultimately the real sign of success of this visit, is whether the Australian Foreign Minister can really pivot Australia's relationship with Myanmar onto a little bit more of a firmer footing going forward. For the most part, it's been quite a constructive role that Australia has played, with a few inconsistencies around that, particularly in terms of our support for the military.
Because Australia is one of the very few countries which still has quite a close relationship with the government, and it even offers financial support. The government, of course, insists that that's limited to humanitarian assistance and so on, but you don't completely agree with that statement.
Well, I mean, when you say the government, I mean, to be very clear, we're talking about the military. And this is a military which the United Nations has found this year likely undertook a campaign of genocide against the Rohingya people. Now, the Australian government gives around $400,000 each year in assistance to that military. Most of it, arguably, is for pretty mundane activities in terms of, or pretty innocent activities in terms of humanitarian assistance and language training and so forth. The real problem, though, of course, is twofold. One is that we are out of step with all of our allies in this approach, who have taken a much firmer footing. The United States, Canada, France, the UK, the European Union have all cut ties completely. But second of all, we do not screen who that assistance is provided to. And of course, that means, therefore, that it's completely possible that someone that is receiving part of that assistance has, of course, been involved in some of those atrocities. And I think for any Australian, that is certainly something that is beyond the pale.
Tom Woodruff there speaking a little earlier to Mariko Ooi. Now, it took almost a day, but Donald Trump's finally given his response to the jailing of his former lawyer, Michael Cohen. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday for breaking campaign finance laws and committing fraud. Mr. Cohen said he was only acting at his former boss's request. The president waited until Thursday morning to respond on Twitter. He denied directing Mr. Cohen to break the law and said he should have known what he was doing. Mr. Trump also went on Fox News to make his point.
Let me tell you, I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing. That's why you pay them a lot of money, etc., etc. He is a lawyer. He represents a client. I never directed him to do anything incorrect or wrong.
So, what do we make of all this? Well, here's our North America reporter, Anthony Zerka.
So Donald Trump, in a series of tweets this morning, laid out what essentially could be his defense against the allegations that he participated in a campaign finance crime, one that Michael Cohen has pleaded guilty to. First of all, he said that he didn't tell Michael Cohen to commit a crime, and then he relied on Michael Cohen as his lawyer to understand what was and wasn't legal. But all of that aside, even if Michael Cohen did do this, he may not have committed a crime at all. That a payment, these hush money payments to two women who are alleging affairs with Donald Trump, that doesn't constitute a campaign finance contribution and therefore didn't have to be disclosed. I think what you're going to hear from prosecutors, the ones who got a guilty plea from Michael Cohen, is that Donald Trump's shifting stories on this, originally denying it and then acknowledging the payment and now saying, well, maybe it wasn't a crime. These shifting stories are indications of a knowledge of wrongdoing. Now, Donald Trump will not necessarily be charged in this. There's no indication at this point that he could face criminal indictment, but he definitely has had the finger pointed at him from prosecutors in this Michael Cohen plea agreement, saying that he directed Michael Cohen to make these payments. They also got the National Enquirer, one of the tabloid magazine that made a payment to one of these women, got them to acknowledge, the prosecutors got them to acknowledge that this was done in order to influence the 2016 presidential election. So Donald Trump has essentially outlined his criminal defense in the case that he needs it. The question is, will prosecutors buy that?
Anthony Zerka in Washington for us. You're watching Newsday on the BBC. Still to come on the programme. The UN Secretary General appeals to delegates from almost 200 countries to step up their efforts to fight global warming.
Also coming up in the programme, the ultimate sporting challenge. Pakistan prepares its first ever female blind cricket team.
After 8 months on the run, Saddam Hussein has been tracked down and captured by American forces.
Saddam Hussein is finished because he killed our people, our women, our children.
The signatures took only a few minutes, but they brought a formal end to 3.5 years of conflict that has claimed more than 200,000 lives. Before an audience of world leaders, the presidents of Bosnia, Serbia and Croatia put their names to the peace agreement.
The Romanian border was sealed and silent today. Romania has cut itself off from the outside world in order to prevent the details of the presumed massacre in Timișoara from leaking out.
From sex at the White House to a trial for his political life, the Lewinsky affair tonight guaranteed Bill Clinton his place in history as only the second president ever to be impeached.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Marie Goy in Singapore.
Hello, I'm Ben Bland in London. These are our top stories. French police say they've killed the gunman who shot dead 3 people near a Christmas market in Strasbourg.
The EU says it won't renew the Brexit deal as Theresa May seeks assurances in Brussels over the controversial backstop plan. Let's now take a look at some front pages from around the world, and let's start with the South China Morning Post, which reports on China's detention of a second Canadian citizen on allegations of harming national security. Relationship between China and Canada have been quite tense since the arrest of a Chinese woman in Vancouver, a senior executive at telecoms giant Huawei, who's also the daughter of the founder. The Gulf News, meanwhile, leads on the progress of Yemen peace talks and the momentous ceasefire agreement for the port city of Hodeidah. The paper says that food aid may finally now be able to get into the country and help millions of people on the brink of starvation. And the Japan Times reports on a trade agreement between the EU and Japan, which has been dubbed as the world's biggest trade deal. The paper calls the deal a victory for Europe as a free trade champion, of course, in the face of President Trump's protectionism, as well as the UK's decision to leave the EU.
You know what I love about that deal is that they've nicknamed it Cheese for Cars. Honestly, look it up, it's true. Moving on, the United Nations Secretary General has made a dramatic appeal to almost 200 countries to step up their fight against global warming and its impact. Antonio Guterres said failure to do so would be suicidal. At the UN meeting in Poland, which is coming to a close, one group of nations, including the Maldives, has warned they face extinction if there isn't immediate action to reduce emissions and limit the rise in global temperatures. Our science editor David Shukman reports.
Almost a decade ago, an extraordinary publicity stunt. The government of the Maldives in diving gear, highlighting the danger of the level of the sea rising. The man who chaired this underwater meeting is here now.
Governments are not listening, institutions are not listening, no one seems to be listening to what the science is saying.
And what does that mean for your country?
We will disappear.
Negotiators here in Poland are frantically trying to head off the worst effects of global warming. But progress in the talks is incredibly slow. A few governments are dragging their feet.
This is the heart of the process, and we've been allowed in for a couple of minutes. And what's striking is the sheer scale of the event, with nearly 200 governments represented here. And of course they've all brought their own agendas, so getting them all to agree on what to do about climate change is a massive challenge.
Outside the conference, a reminder of why this is hard. Burning fuels like coal releases gases that warm the planet. But many countries, including Poland, rely on coal. I've seen the many jobs that depend on it. Pavel uses coal to heat his home. He's from a mining family. He knows the industry matters here, but also that coal is polluting.
You go outside and want to take a deep breath, the air biting your throat. Your throat. Yes.
My daughter has a something like child asthma, because here the air isn't good for her.
There's the earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty.
50 years ago, this image of our fragile planet raised awareness of potential threats to the environment. Now we're seeing where that might lead. David Schuckman, BBC News in Poland.
Now, Pakistan is in the process of creating its first ever international female blind cricket team. Only a handful of countries in the world have done the same, and the Pakistani team is due to play its first match in January in what will only be the second ever international series of women's blind cricket. Sekunda Kermani reports from Islamabad.
These teenagers are hoping to be selected for Pakistan's first female international blind cricket team. In blind cricket, a specially adapted ball is used, filled with ball bearings that can be heard rattling as the ball travels towards the batsman. Teams are made up of a mix of blind, partially and partially sighted players.
When the children reach this level, it changes them a lot. They feel shy in the beginning and don't feel comfortable in front of others. But after some time, their body language improves and their feelings change dramatically. Ready? Yes. Go.
The Pakistani male blind cricket team has won a number of trophies, but the women's team was only set up in October.
I had never played cricket before this, but I always thought there should be a female team, just like there is a male one. Before this, I used to do other sports like running and long jump, so I have competed at international level.
The girls are due to play their first match against Nepal in January, and they say they want to send a message to the rest of the country.
Blind players are capable of doing almost everything sighted players can do. We are no less than the regular team. The government should provide us with the facilities they have given to our national team.
Sekunda Kermani reporting there. Now, many of us have experienced bullying, but for Yoon Bi Kim, it nearly ended her career. The widely acclaimed pianist was able to overcome the trauma, and she told us about the joy she found in playing again.
It really did almost destroy my love for performing, my love for playing piano and learning music. I had a very tough teacher growing up, but she always believed in me. And when I entered college, I had a really terrible experience with one of my professors where I was bullied, and it affected me greatly. I used to have so much joy performing, but now it became just this paralyzing experience. It was meant to be degrading and humiliating and intimidating and very manipulative. I reached a turning point with all the anxiety and depression I had over performing after reading this book, The Art of Practicing by Madeline Bruiser, and it talked about figuring out what our intentions are as performers, as artists, and also discovering what the intentions are of the audience. Instead of remembering the joy and generosity I felt in wanting to share this beautiful music that I love, I was thinking more about how awful I am if it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go. The thing that really helped bring back my love for performing is trusting and believing in people again. I feel lucky, and that's why I share my experiences and my story so openly, because a lot of people have gone through this, and it's really tough to quiet the kind of negative voices and being critical of yourself. I grew to love music in a very deep way, in a very emotional way, in a very intellectual way. It's like I've entered another dimension. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience when it's a really great performance. I feel just elevated, like on another plane. Like I become one with the music, and the audience gives an energy and I'm feeding off that energy.
You've been watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Ben Bland in London.
And I'm Marie Goy in Singapore. But don't go away because I'll be back with business news. And Ben, you really have to watch this movie. If you haven't, we'll see why it took 30 years for this classic Japanese anime, My Neighbor Totoro, to finally debut in China.
I'm intrigued. Now, before we go, we'd like to leave you with these pictures. You might know the New Zealand actor Jason Momoa from the Game of Thrones TV series. Well, here he is, publicising his new film. It's called Aquaman. He's publicising it by leading a haka. That is, of course, the traditional Maori dance. There it is, being performed on a special blue, not red, blue carpet. See what they've done there? Blue for aqua. Great, isn't it? That's all for now. Stay with us here on BBC World News.
Hello. Thursday brought us a cold and a frosty day across many parts of the country, but there was some blue sky and some sunshine. This picture was taken by one of our weather watchers in Wiltshire, and I think Friday morning will dawn on a very similar note. Again, it will be a cold and a frosty start to the day with sub-zero temperatures first thing. Plenty of spells of sunshine for many of us through the course of the day to compensate for that fairly chilly start. But temperatures are fairly widely will be below freezing. It won't be quite as cold in the west, particularly for Northern Ireland, where we've got a little bit more cloud first thing Friday morning, keeping temperatures around 4 or 5 degrees. After that cold, frosty start, for many of us, it will be a decent, dry-looking day. Always a bit more cloud for Northern Ireland, with a chance of a few showers at times too. Perhaps just 1 or 2 showers around some of these exposed eastern coasts, particularly for eastern Scotland, northeast England. Could even be a wintry flurry down across East Anglia and the southeast. But for the vast majority of people, you'll miss those showers, and temperatures for most of us around 4 to 7 degrees. Then into Friday evening, we see the cloud bringing more outbreaks of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland too. Eastern areas keeping in that cold air, so you can see the blue colours later on through Friday and then on into Saturday. But some milder air just waiting in the wings here out towards the southwest. That'll be drawn in on this weather front. So a bit of a change in conditions as we head through into the weekend as a frontal system works in from the west. It'll bring not only that milder air but also some outbreaks of rain, which will for some of us turn to snow. So Saturday, things are turning pretty wet and windy. Some fairly heavy snow and also some ice across Scotland and northern England, combined with some strong winds too. So there could be some travel disruption through the day on Saturday as this weather front bumps into that cold air. You can see the snow across parts of northern England and Scotland too. Could be about 10 to 20 centimetres across central parts of Scotland, even more over the higher ground, 2 to 5 centimetres across parts of northern England. Now, it will turn back to rain further south across the country, where we've got some slightly milder air working in, but you'll really notice the strength of those winds. It will feel around -4 degrees there in Hull. For Northern Ireland, you've got the slightly milder air moving in, so any early snow turning back to rain, but some heavy snow across Scotland could be quite problematic through the day on Saturday. That rain slowly easing away towards the east as we head through into the second half of the weekend, but we keep that pretty chilly wind coming in from the west. Although things will turn milder through the day on Sunday, most of those heavy and wintry showers should ease away too. Bye-bye.
Join Simon McCoy as he brings you the top stories live.
The ball is entirely in the UK's court. We could have got our tennis correspondent to report on this.
The latest in sport.
Heaven knows how they're dealing with this on the court.
The heat or the wind? I'm not quite sure.
Well, both.
The day's weather.
It's getting colder.
And undeniable chemistry.
He's still laughing. We have to talk to each other.
There's only one Simon.
So you're the real McCoy.
Afternoon Live with Simon McCoy, weekdays at 2 p.m. on the BBC News Channel.
Sometimes being in the driving seat is... She stayed in school. She's a... This isn't just playing sports. This is... the simple act of standing, and you're a... You don't need superpowers to change the world. 100 Women, a season of inspiring and challenging stories on the BBC.
Hello, I'm Ben Bland with BBC News. Our top story. The French Interior Ministers confirmed that police have killed the man who attacked a Christmas market in the city of Strasbourg on Tuesday. Sheriff Chakat was spotted by police in the Neudorf district of the city on Thursday evening. When he opened fire on the officers, they retaliated, killing him in the short exchange of fire. The British Prime Minister Theresa May has urged EU members to help salvage her Brexit deal, but they say they won't renegotiate. Mrs May has been seeking assurances over the controversial Irish border backstop after surviving a no-confidence vote earlier this week. And this video is trending on BBC.com. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has made a dramatic appeal to almost 200 countries to step up their efforts to fight global warming and its impact. He said failure to do so will be suicidal. That's all. Let's stay with BBC News. Now on BBC News, in a special edition of Hard Talk from Oslo, Sarah Montague speaks to the winners of this year's Nobel Peace Prize.
Welcome to a special edition of Hard Talk from Oslo with me, Sarah Montague. My guests have come to the Norwegian capital to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Nadia Morad and Dr. Denis Mukwege have been jointly awarded this year's prize for their efforts to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict. Nadia Morad, from Iraq's Yazidi community, was kidnapped and repeatedly raped by so-called Islamic State. She's highlighted the issue since her escape. Dr. Mukwege is a gynecologist who's treated thousands of women and children sexually abused in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What can be done to stop the use of rape as a weapon of war? Nadia Morad, Dr. Denis Mukwege, welcome to Hard Talk. Dr. Mukwege, tell us how you learned about winning the prize. I think you were in surgery, weren't you?
Exactement, j'étais au bloc opératoire. Normalement, le vendredi, j'opère et donc j'ai entendu un bruit. Je me suis posé la question, qu'est-ce qui se passait? Est-ce que c'est un incendie ou un accident? Et quand j'étais en train de me poser des questions, l'anesthésiste est venu, il m'a sauté au cou en disant vous venez d'être nommé pour le prix Nobel de la paix 2018. J'étais complètement touché et surtout ce nombre de femmes qui sont venues me prendre et chanter, danser. C'était très émouvant.
And totally surprising?
À ce moment-là, vraiment, j'étais surpris parce que je n'y avais pas pensé.
Nadia Morad, you have expressed mixed feelings on winning the prize. It changed your life so much.
اب جایزه وقتی ما بکار کریو ما تشتكيش جایزه نوبل نزاني ما مجوز الرسالة كي جهين مش تشتي داعش بكاتو جنا كري تشتي ما وعائلة ما وملاتي ما كري أفريا مش خورا قرتي كالك بزحمت بو و 3 سالة ديم هرول جهكي إشبروي كي من نديت إنه قواطع مع جارنا تحسم إنه قواطع منها مع أسكاربم في شغلي بيهتير ببم أبكيبو از بكيبو مشاليا كي بر وي إرهابي دبيا ما وجنيد وكا ما ونداكا و نوبل نهشت أفتجت هدفي داعش بجيبي وش آليا كي با از حزين بوم إجبر أف جايزة بشتي كاركي جالكي بزحمات وبشتي تعدكا جالكي مع زنهات.
You spoke to us on Hard Talk about what happened to you in 2016. To raise awareness, you have had to keep retelling your story, which I know is difficult for you. But what is it that you say to those who don't know what happened to you?
هر جارك شما جهكي مديم قصة خود قو إيش حكومة دارة إيش جامعة راش إيش محكمة را إيش ميديا را وهر جارك من زحمت بو هر جارك زت حسيام إنه أزت حسيام بحيبة أزت حسيام بتعبه بس تشتمل بينه عالم زانبه إنه أو تشنا هاتي سكن عندن بلكي إيرو أزد بيجم بس بهزارة هتانها أفتعدلي تياكرن وبهزارة نبايفتن إش حيبي أو حرية تاوان نبو كبايبن بس بيسترش ملوان تياكرن.
And what happened to you was that you were taken from your village along with many other Yazidi women, and with them you were effectively sold and raped many times.
أفتش داعش بشكلكي على نيجر وقت هاتي من 2014 بيهتر 6500 كتشكو جني ازديابرن از وی وقتی بخوشکت خرابم از بداغ خرابم بکچت برای خورا بیانست جن برای خورا ام داعش البال فرق نبو کی جنا ابزاروكا كي اتشلونا الباوان اهم بو شرف وكرامتا وانجيب بن اغتسابك بفروشن وافتشت نا روجا كبتني يا جارة كبتني وافتشت هتان هو بحقي 3000 مستمرة.
Dr. Mukwege, you became a gynecologist and built a hospital in the Democratic Republic of Congo to help women in childbirth. But I know when you opened the doors, you had a rather different experience of the patients who was turning up. Tell us what happened.
En effet, lorsque j'avais commencé comme gynécologue obstétricien, ma vision c'était de lutter contre la mortalité maternelle qui est très élevée dans mon pays. Et donc la construction de l'hôpital c'était pour ce but. Mais la première victime que j'avais soignée à l'hôpital, qui s'était présentée, c'était une femme malheureusement qui avait subi un viol avec extrême violence puisqu'elle avait tout son appareil génital complètement en petits morceaux par une balle, une arme à feu. Et je crois que pour moi c'était la première fois, après 15 ans d'expérience comme gynécologue obstétricien, c'était la première fois que je voyais des lésions comme ça. Évidemment, je pensais que c'est un fait isolé, mais je ne pouvais pas malheureusement imaginer la suite.
And what did happen is that you were presented in the first few months with many more cases of rape.
3 mois après, je m'étais rendu compte que ce n'était pas normal. Parce que en 3 mois, donc 1999, j'avais soigné déjà 45 femmes avec la même histoire. Là, j'ai commencé quand même à comprendre qu'il y avait quelque chose d'anormal, que toutes les femmes viennent avec la même histoire, des viols collectifs avec destruction, torture portant sur l'appareil génital. J'ai compris que ce n'était pas normal.
And this was, I mean, we're talking all ages. How young was your youngest patient?
Aujourd'hui, la plus jeune a seulement 6 mois. Et les plus âgées sont des femmes qui ont au-delà de 80 ans et souvent elles ne connaissent même pas leur âge tellement elles sont âgées et quand elles sont nées, il n'y avait pas d'état civil. Donc je crois que c'est tous les âges. Il n'y a pas... et je crois que là, je voulais vraiment attirer l'attention. Ce n'est pas sexuel, c'est une stratégie de destruction. Puisque quand vous voyez les personnes qu'ils prennent, ça n'a rien à voir avec le sexe.
So it is a result of war, is it? It's not everyday violence?
Non, ce n'est pas une violence habituelle. C'est vraiment un viol comme stratégie de guerre, un viol comme terrorisme, un acte de terrorisme.
You've likened it to biological warfare. In what, and you talked about it as an extermination tactic. Can you explain what you mean?
Vous savez que lorsque on attaque l'homme au niveau de l'appareil génital de la femme, ça veut dire tout simplement on attaque l'homme là où il vient. Ça, c'est d'abord quelque chose de... c'est très quelque chose qu'il faut comprendre. Mais lorsqu'on le fait en public, collectivement, avec torture, on traumatise non seulement la victime, mais on traumatise également toute la population qui voit ça. Et en fait, ces traumatismes entraînent souvent que les gens ils perdent la confiance en eux-mêmes. La tendance est de fuir. Donc, il y a un déplacement massif de la population. Lorsqu'on tire dans l'appareil génital, lorsqu'on est violé par plusieurs personnes à la fois, il y a les infections, il y a la destruction de l'appareil génital. Donc, on détruit la capacité de la femme de reproduire, de donner d'autres enfants après. En détruisant une personne, vous empêchez plusieurs personnes de venir en vie. Et à la fin, la femme porte la société sur ses épaules. Dans ma communauté, ce sont les femmes qui portent même l'économie. Lorsque vous les rendez malades, donc vous détruisez l'économie de la communauté. Résultat, c'est que vous avez les mêmes conséquences que les armes classiques, mais malheureusement ici, ça va se transmettre sur des générations à venir. Le VIH peut aller d'une génération à une autre, le traumatisme psychologique peut aller d'une génération à une autre, et donc la transmission peut se faire verticalement, mais aussi transversalement.
Yeah.
Et donc c'est la gravité de cette arme.
Yeah, you've described rape as the least of what these women suffer because of the consequences of it. Do you think it is a deliberate military tactic, that it is actually sanctioned from the senior levels?
On a beaucoup de cas de témoignages où en fait les femmes témoignent comment les chefs militaires décident ce qu'il va faire des femmes. Ça, c'est du côté des victimes. Mais également, on a des